On three, there we go. We're live and momentarily now we're recording. And we're here. Good morning, Bob Tassone, June 14th, 2023. Welcome and thank you for joining me again for a discussion this morning about Port Financial Services, Port Insurance, and the kinds of important coverages that homeowners need, including now investor conversation. To talk about more things that you can do to help serve their insurance coverage needs, keep people safe and happy in their home, protect them from liability, and help them make smart decisions and avoid costly mistakes.
Hey,
Good morning, Bob.
good morning. Good to be back.
Yes, it's finally into some beautiful weather here in Williamsburg, mid-June now, June 14th. And it's just a nice time to be in Williamsburg these days. So
Supposed to be a cool summer. They canceled summer.
maybe so, right?
They canceled the hot weather.
I have a feeling we'll be saying something different in about a month or so
Yeah,
from
yeah,
July and August always end up being a little bit more humid,
yeah.
and we're just loving it right now.
Yep.
So with that in mind, not the weather isn't always good for homeowners that have issues with their home or that might have liability concerns. And so you act as a shield and a bit of an umbrella, so to speak, to help people stay safe and free from liability. And tell me a little bit more about some things that you can do for investors and anybody that might have a home that they're looking to fix and repair and that kind of thing.
Well, when an investor purchases a property, they usually purchase it for reasons to either rent it or to sell it. I don't know. Well, John, what else can we do with a property if we buy it as an investor?
Well, there's all kinds of, so that's a great question, Bob. Actually, with investors, there's a lot
That's
of
your
different
department.
Yeah, there's a lot of different exit strategies that certainly are suitable for investors. Depends on what their objectives are. And as an investor myself, I like to buy and hold. So, but not everything, you don't always buy and hold forever. So there's people might have heard of the BRRRR method for property acquisition, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So that's the BRRRR method. Where you can use the property that you have, gain the equity in the property as you repair it and fix it and things like that. And that's a long-term hold that would be different from a fix and flip, but the acquisition happens, and often when you get into owning a property and you start doing things with it, then your exit strategy can change. So a fix and flip can turn into a long-term buy and hold, but it really just depends on what your what is your need? What is, as an investor, do you need that turnover money? Do you need to turn that investment over so that you roll it into the next investment? Is it going to be is it your intention to put it into your portfolio? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I could go on and on about different types of exit strategies and scenarios for investments. I don't mean to get lost in that, but great question.
Well, anyway, so at the beginning of the process, whatever it is, whether it's a BRRRR or a flip or a rental, that's the strategy. If you've got a property that's not really the way it should be and you need to renovate it, then there's a special type of policy for that. So if the property is just going to be rented, you can use a dwelling policy or what's called a landlord policy. And that's like a homeowner policy, except it doesn't cover contents very well. And it has other things like loss of rents coverage, which we talked about last week when we were on together. But in this case, if somebody is going to buy a house and it needs renovation, then a builder's risk policy is applicable. So a builder's risk policy is applicable either for new construction or for renovation. And most of the time when you're dealing with someone, John, I would expect it's a house that's already there.
Right.
And somebody is purchasing it as an investment, but there are certain things that need to be done to it, and so they're going to renovate it. Whereas it would be less frequent that you would be dealing with somebody with a new construction that was built from the foundation up.
Well, in that case, usually it would be a builder, and that builder would,
Yeah, the builder might have a builder's risk.
yeah, they
Yeah.
might have a builder's risk policy in their own possession
Right.
while they are
Right.
in construction process until it gets turned over to the
Right.
final
Yeah,
final
yeah,
owner.
that's right. So we're talking about a builder's risk for the builder, but in your case, the investor is the person that oftentimes has to take out the builder's risk policy, even if they have a general contractor doing the work.
Yeah,
Okay, it's their property that they want to protect. So a builder's risk. Now, do you need a builder's risk policy? It depends on what type of renovation you're doing.
thank you.
Okay, so if you buy a 3-bedroom rancher and you want to make it so you can rent it out, and the roof is kind of needing replacement, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape. I mean, might put a coat of paint on the walls or, clean up this or that, but nothing real major. And I mean, a roof can go on in a couple of days. So you may not need a builder's risk policy. Just get the roof done.
Yeah, okay.
I can put a dwelling policy on it. And the renovation that you're doing is a roof. We can do that without the builder's risk policy. But on the other hand, if it's something that's going to take some time, nobody's going to be living in the house, then that's when the builder's risk policy comes into play, because you're going to be doing the roof, but maybe you're going to be moving a wall or taking out a wall, or you're going to be totally renovating the kitchen, or you're tearing apart the bathrooms. You're putting all new duct work in for the HVAC. You're replacing the floors.
So that brings up a question. What's the decision factor? What's the pivot point where you
I think the
go
pivot
from-
point mostly for me is how fast can you get this done? In other words, if this is going to take a week or two, I can probably get by with a regular landlord policy, because it's probably not that extensive if it's just taking that amount of time.
Okay,
But if it's a project that's going to take months, then you need a builder's risk policy, because then you're talking about having materials on site. You're talking about having tools and equipment on site. You're talking about a property that is not attended, where nobody's living there. And just like we said, with vacant dwellings, the risk for vandalism and arson is greater when there's nobody there
Right.
looking out at it
right.
after it. So that's when the builder's risk comes into play. And that's when I need to know what your plan is, because I need to know what that building is worth when it's sitting there. And then I need to know how much you're going to put into it. We need to be specific so that we can value it properly.
Absolutely. Okay. So
Yeah.
with a builder's risk policy, it's something that you would shift from one policy coverage perhaps during the course of time that the renovation is happening, and
Yeah,
then
we can convert that policy over to a landlord policy
go on.
when the home becomes habitable.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
How long would you say a typical builder's risk policy is in place on
Well, So I
property?
usually write them for 3 months. But then you're dependent on the contractor,
Yeah.
and
Get delayed. It is not uncommon for
unfortunately, 3 months won't do it sometimes, even though you the best of intentions. I'm going to get this done in 3 months, and it takes longer than that. And so
Yeah.
we can just renew it for another 3 months. Or if you know for a fact that it's going to take at least 6 months, you can do a 6-month policy and then
right.
renew it for 3 months or whatever. Hopefully, it doesn't take that long, but like with a commercial building, where they're totally renovating it, I've had those go on for a couple of years.
Yeah, sometimes some larger projects certainly can take a long time to get from A to Z.
Oh, yeah.
all the way
Yeah.
along that.
A lot of, and you're at the mercy of the contractors and of the materials that they need to get sometimes.
Right. Well, I think
So,
there's a lot of people that would love to be able to get into fix and flips. There's a number of ways to get into investing that don't involve high levels of risk, but typically fixing and flipping a house is one of the more risk taking real estate investing
yeah,
strategies. So that fixing and flipping is probably one of the most risky scenarios for real estate investing, and you want to protect yourself, especially in that case when any form of loss that happens during that process in time where you're in possession of that property can wipe out any profits
oh, yeah.
that you have, and that can be devastating to an investor, and it's particularly small time investors, but any investor, even investors that do this all the time, they're going to need to make sure that they're protecting themselves. But for somebody that's thinking about it or is listening to this and just starting to learn a little bit more about what they're wanting to do in real estate, it's nice that you are here to be able to provide this resource and offer these kinds of information and B, the coverages that are necessary. Because it sounds to me like, Bob, the more we've been talking about this, you have the ability to pretty much soup to nuts cover the entire, whatever somebody's insurance needs are, not just for real estate, but for other aspects of life as well. And I appreciate your sharing this knowledge and wisdom with us.
Okay, so the moral of the story is, I mean, and you probably tell people this all the time, you've got to do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you know what you're getting into. And if you don't have the expertise to figure that out, you need to hire somebody that does. You
Yeah.
need to get some type of good building inspector or a contractor that will take a look at this property and say, because you were worried about these three things, and then the expert gets there and he says, you really need to be worried about this foundation. You see this over here, and
Right.
he points out something that you didn't see. And so that's how these plans go haywire.
Yep. It can often be something structural in the house. You mentioned foundation. Sometimes it can be electrical. It could be
Yeah.
plumbing issues. Anything can go sideways once you start tearing into a project. You might have floor joists that need to get replaced when you rip up some floors, and anything can happen. It's that, but it's part of the excitement of real estate investing is knowing that you have an opportunity to do something and make something special. And I think that's what a lot of people, of course, there's a financial gain to it. There's a financial part of the equation, but I think people get into this because they love making something nice out of something not so nice, taking something and fixing it and making it nice for somebody else to enjoy. And it does a lot of things in the economy. Think about what happens when a single home that needs renovation gets acquired by a real estate investor. There's people that get employed, the services, the companies here locally that provide the materials, services for that repair. You got contractors that come in, you've got suppliers for any number of things that go in there. And then you got landscape people that get the benefit. The neighbors are happy because now they're seeing a home renovated and they feel better about their property and their own property values. There's a huge economy that takes place in the whole process of a fix and flip or
Yep.
any real estate investor that's paying attention to what they're really
If anybody's interested in that type of thing, just you can call on me or any insurance agent that does that type of thing. But try to have your plan in place, because they're going to ask you a lot of questions before they be able to insure it. And then even then, it's got to go to an underwriter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that you should call me today and expect it to be covered tomorrow.
You plan ahead.
Give me a little bit of time.
That sounds like good advice. Sounds like very good advice. Well, Bob, I look forward to, I appreciate your sharing that information with us this morning. I need to let you get about your day. thank you for this valuable information. And for anybody out there that's listening, your contact information is in the link on the page, and my contact information is here on the page. So John
Right.
Polson, Memory Group Real Estate here in eXp Realty here in Williamsburg. Office is right downtown here on Prince George Street. I am down in the basement, and we are here to serve for anybody's real estate, for your real estate needs here in the Greater Peninsula area. Thank you, Bob, for helping us with insurance and financial services as well.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, John.
All right, take care. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
See you.